Wild Health is about optimizing you. We use genomics, blood work, biometrics, microbiome assessment, many other tests, and a conversation with you to come up with a full health optimization plan. What's the perfect diet, exercise, and supplement plan for you and only you? The Wild Health podcast is about optimizing all of us. Here we cover the cutting-edge science that gives you the base to be able to apply the personalized plan we give you as a patient. To sign up as a patient, go to wildhealth.com. Or if you're a physician or health coach and you want to learn how to do this for your patients, we're happy to help as well. Wildhealth.com for all the information on becoming a patient or working with us.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Wild Health Podcast. It's Mike Stone here, and super excited to sit down with my friend, Rhett Taylor. So Rhett has a ton to say about his current business, his new insights into the meaning of life, which I'm waiting to hear. Climbing big mountains, getting out into nature, really like so many topics I want to dive into with you. So I won't do a huge lengthy intro. I think we'll just kind of jump in, but really, really grateful that you're spending some time with us. And who knew that, running into you in line in the airport in Denver was going to lead to our relationship and exploration together. And just what a gift.
Well, thank you, Mike. What a gift, indeed. And honestly, within a couple minutes or maybe even less of meeting you in the line at the Denver airport, I hoped that we would go deep, and I expected that we'd be fast friends. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the beginning. And then we spent, several days together in this immersive retreat setting, doing, breath work, connecting with people, getting out into nature. What a way to start a relationship too. It's, if we couldn't be friends after that, there was just no hope for us.
No, definitely not. It was about as friendly as could be. And what a beautiful experience, hosted by Finney and Kelly, another recent guest of yours on the show.
Yeah, it was so great to reconnect with him as well. All right, well, I'm going to give you sort of a menu option, right? We can start off with where in the world you got this just totally infectious passion for nature. And nature immersion. We can hear about your recent trip to Denali. We can hear about the business. Like, take me where you want to go. Get us started.
Well, for me, it's always about nature. It all starts there. It's where we started. It's our original mother and home, and would love to start there. For me personally, I was born in a town in Wyoming, Esterbrook, Wyoming, population 11. And I don't know if you've ever driven through Wyoming, but when you do, you'll see the signs for the towns, and it says the elevation and the population. And it's oftentimes double digits, maybe triple digits sometimes. So yeah, born in a town with 11 people. My mom and dad were part of the Back to the Land movement of the mid 70s. Wow. They were Chicago school teachers who decided to pack it up and move to Wyoming. They found the smallest place they could possibly find. My dad said, of that 11, he said probably 50% were Vietnam draft dodgers hiding out. So you can imagine how remote it was. And, but only lived there for a year or so, and then ended up moving a lot as a kid and lived in some of the biggest cities in the country. And, but just always felt this passion for nature and just this calling to it. My dad just told me recently that whenever I was a baby and crying, he would just take me outside, and that was the antidote. I would just stop crying. And I was, just always seeking out nature, whether it was Central Park or an abandoned lot in Boston or wherever was the most wildest place. That's where I wanted to spend time. And, then went on to live and work in some of the biggest cities in the world, from Sao Paulo to Riyadh, Jeddah, Miami, New York. And again, always sought out nature. It was when I was living in New York that started to wonder what it was about nature from a scientific standpoint that just had me and others able to find deeper happiness and meaning and focus and creativity. and really tap it more into our wild selves, which can feel very distant oftentimes. And, it was at a good time because 2007, 2008, it's when you started seeing some of these papers coming out. There's a rather famous one about how patients in hospitals recover faster when they have a view toward nature. Another one about cognition, when a group of Michigan students would go and walk in the woods versus walk in the city. Very simple, early nature research that started to show that the poets and philosophers actually had something too, and there's something scientific that could back, the claims of a walk in the woods. And I was just thrilled and excited. And I had this group. I used to be a competitive marathon and ultramarathon runner, and then one day I played basketball with a buddy for half an hour, just one-on-one, and I thought I was in shape and realized that all I could do was run and go, in one motion, one direction. But as soon as you ask me to go vertical or lateral, nope.
Yeah. That was your introduction to having a balanced fitness program.
It was. And so I went to the gym, which is what you did back in the early 2000s. And there was no such thing as body weight and, MovNat and Ido Portal. And so I was curling and bench pressing and bored out of my mind, and dragging myself to exercise, which was something that was always fun for me as a runner, because I would get out in nature and I would feel my body and really move in one of the original modalities, which is to run. And so I read about this guy who sort of formalized running around in the woods as a way of working out, Erwan Lacour, which he started something called MovNat, which is all about moving your body naturally, or the different modalities, everything from walking to running, jumping, swimming, lifting, carrying, catching, throwing, defending, climbing, and started doing that in Central Park. Long story short, a bunch of people joined me, and I mean like 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people joined me, and we had this group, very early on, where the primal barefoot people in New York City, running around without our shoes on and climbing trees. And it was an amazing group. And I was through them, I was introduced to some of these studies and to the paleo diets, and really started understanding what it was about living according to nature that helped me, first of all, heal and then begin to thrive and flourish. And it was incredibly exciting, and it remains the most exciting thing to me at this time.
Yeah, I mean, it brings to mind first of all, just a great image of thousands of people running around in Central Park with their shoes off, because I lived in New York for a while. That would be quite a sight. But also, right after we did our retreat together, you sent a photo from, I think, your backyard, and you're really living the dream. I mean, you're in Colorado. It is just majestic natural beauty, and we see this all the time. This is, I mean, the Japanese have done obviously a huge amount for the world's knowledge of nature bathing and just getting out. And I did a pretty deep dive recently for a patient who had requested some more information on this, and it's like dose dependent in the same way that, well, in the opposite way that cigarette smoking is dose dependent. The more you smoke, the more unhealthy it is. If you get out into a city park, it's so good for your stress levels, your cortisol levels, your sleep, your cognition. If you get out into a rural area, it's even better. If you go out with a backpack and you're literally gone from, society, and an urban area or even a suburban area, it's even better. So I do want to put a little pin in that if what you're doing is living in a city, get to the park. It's still way better than not going out. But we really are just almost magnetically drawn to the deepest in nature immersion possible from our bodies. And if we're able to like really listen into that, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it just makes so much sense to me because nature is our original home. She's our original mother. And we feel good when we go home. We feel good when we connect with our mother, hopefully. And it's just a natural thing that so many of us are suppressing. And we don't even know it. We don't even know it that that we should be focusing in on just that deeper connection with nature. We've spent the vast majority of our evolution as one of nature. And it's only in the very near recent evolutionary time clock that we've disconnected, and that disconnect is growing. And, I read some stats probably 7 or 8 years ago that the average American child spends less than an hour outdoors per day. I recently heard at a conference last week that figure is down to 8 minutes. 8 minutes per day is what a child spends outdoors. And, so chickens spend an hour and a half outdoors per day. It's like, according to some, like one of these certifications, chickens have to spend an hour and a half outdoors. Prisoners have to spend 1 hour outdoors per day. And our children are spending less than 10 minutes on average outdoors per day. And it's just so sad. And it's a real shame. I was climbing outdoors rocks, and this girl walked by with her dad, and she's like, "Look, Dad, it's like the climbing gym." And I'm like, actually, the climbing gym is supposed to be like the outdoors. So, we've got it backwards these days.
Yeah, that's a mind-boggling number. 8 minutes. I do know that I looked into this recently, not specifically with kids, but 90% of our time is spent indoors on average as Americans. So it's clearly there's a lot of room to flip that script. What a amazing opportunity to transition a little into. You had a real chance to get deep into nature recently, and I think I've enjoyed hearing a little bit about it. I know the listeners would love hearing about your recent trip up to Denali.
Oh yeah, Denali. It was absolutely incredible. The tallest mountain in North America, up in Alaska, extremely remote. Quite an expedition. Typically, it's about a 20 something day expedition, top to bottom, or bottom to top to bottom. And I was there. I was very fortunate. I was invited by one of my best friends and his brother to be part of this expedition. And we had a great group with a couple guides and another friend of mine on the camera. And it was just incredible. I'm going to go ahead and go on record and say that, in my opinion, the lower part of Denali is the most beautiful place in the whole world. The lower Kahitna Glacier is just spectacular. There's only 4 colors. You've got white of snow, you've got blue sky, if you're lucky, and blue ice, and then this like very dark brown, almost black rock. And it's like Narnia. It's this very special place. And I was very fortunate to spend a number of days out there. When we made it up above that, the mountain gets progressively more foreboding and inhospitable, but it's got its own raw beauty in its own way as well. And yeah, I got to spend 15 days out there with my friends. And for me, it was always about the friends, the nature, and the adventure. And if I'm honest, the opportunity to do something like that doesn't come along all the time. It was never about the summit, although, definitely wanted to summit. That was part of the objective. Yeah. Mainly because I wanted to see the view up there. But we didn't end up summiting, and about 50% of Denali expeditions don't summit. But we made it up above the head wall, and then we just were faced with a string of bad weather. And we didn't even know if we were going to be able to fly out, much less get to the top. So we made the decision to call it and try again another time, but just a fantastic time. And, the longest time I've spent outdoors in a few years was 13 days out camping on the mountain. And I came back. Honestly, it was kind of hard to reintegrate. Yeah. Come back to the office and the demands as a father and a husband, and it was a little bit difficult. I have sympathy for people who come back from those sorts of experiences and faced with the experience of reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's I know that I think listeners will appreciate, like, it's so genuine that it wasn't about the summit. It was about the experience, and you can hear that in how you speak about it. And I think it's not ironic. It makes all the sense in the world that, if you're going to really reconnect with nature, you also need to, worship and be humble in the face of nature, because nature said, no, you're not summiting. You're at 16,500 feet, and there's going to be a snowstorm for the next, 7 days. So that's part of reintegrating, is recognizing we're actually not in control as of anything. And, really just appreciating the gifts that nature gives us when we do have the window to go get all the way to the top, and recognizing that it's okay when we don't. Tell me, I do want to get a chance, because I could talk mountain climbing with you all day. I've got an expedition I'm preparing for the fall, and that's going to be just, I think a little bit too of even for me, a little too self-absorbed for the podcast. But I have had the opportunity to, since you mentioned getting back into the office, to use some of the products that you've so graciously sent for me to try out. Tell us a bit about what the office is for you, and what inspired Ned, and what you're doing there, and what that's all about.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So yeah, the office is the Ned quarters of Ned. Ned is the name of the company. We are a wellness brand. We create all types of natural remedies, and really love creating natural alternatives to pharmaceuticals. Plants before pills is one of our mottos. We say before, not plants, not pills. But we really think that the natural remedies that our ancestors created, explored, died to bring us, and created a beautiful wealth of knowledge around, is a really good first line of defense for a lot of people. And so it started with my mom's battle with cancer. She had cancer, breast cancer, back in 2014. And she made the very bold decision to not do chemo or radiation, which honestly scared me. I wanted her to do everything she could to stay with us. So I went out and I learned everything I could about natural remedies and battling cancer through nutrition and movement, and found a passion for it. And also didn't find any sort of brands that I had real affinity for or loyalty toward. I was asking really pointed questions, easy questions, like, where do you grow your ingredients and how do you extract them? And what's your mission? And I was either getting no response or pretty unsatisfactory ones, and decided that I would start, as a side hustle, a business that was all about transparency and quality. And I would make the products for my mom and for myself and my friends, and period. And it started out that way, and then it just absolutely blew up. People wanted what we were selling, and I wanted to get it to them. My mission in life is to help as many people as possible find a deeper connection with the natural world. And one of the big reasons for starting this business was I was fulfilling that mission. And it has been a rocket ship. It's been really fun. It's been challenging at times as well, especially recently. But it's been very exciting to be able to provide natural remedies to really great people. Unfortunately, though, it has kept me inside, staring at a laptop, not really connecting with nature myself, which has been a bit of a struggle. And, if I'm totally honest with you, when I decided to start the business, I had a few different routes I could go. I knew that I wanted to pursue my passion, what I call my purpose in life, is helping people connect with nature. And I had a few paths or avenues I could go down. One was a product route, which is the one I chose with Ned. We make natural products. What I really wanted to do, and this is one of the first times I'm sharing this, and I'm still feeling into it, is physically actually take people out into nature and reconnect with nature together, and do so like I did in Central Park with those wonderful New Yorkers who came out to reconnect and move in nature. And I was afraid to do that for a couple of reasons. One was I wrongly thought that I couldn't support my family. It's not scalable. It's not sellable. I realize now that that was false. But if I'm like super honest, and I just came to this realization last week while attending the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit in Boulder, I was afraid that if I pursued my true passion, I wouldn't have an excuse if I failed, if that makes any sense. So I wouldn't, right now, until recently, I had the excuse that it wasn't going to support my family. It wasn't scalable. I couldn't sell the business. It was a smart decision. But being honest, it was a decision based on fear. I didn't want to try and fail. And now I can still say it was a smart decision not to do that. So that's where I'm at in my career. I'm 45, man. And I'm about to go through another transition. It's I got to do this. I've got to move in this direction. Like, I absolutely have to do this. I have to put the fear aside and go for it. So that's where I'm at.
I feel like this is the greatest privilege to watch you light up talking about this and to see, to bear witness to you like embracing what's like clearly an authentic spark for doing what feels like the most, no pun intended, natural, and that's really calling to you. So that I'm like so happy for you. It's, probably terrifying too, and takes a lot of courage, right? I'm assuming this is you to get somebody else to run the day-to-day operations for Ned, because I can't imagine you guys would shutter it. You're doing so well, and if you do, I'm gonna have to like get the secret recipe for some of the sleep products that you guys have, because I love them. But I don't just like with all Wild Health things, like no financial relationship. I just love the mellow sleep blend that you guys make, and just would have to make it myself, which would be a huge hassle for me. So I'm glad that that's not going to happen. But what's the exit plan? How long are you going to give yourself to go live your true authentic dream?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, no, we're not going anywhere. I have a great business partner. We have an amazing team. At this point with Ned, most of what I'm doing is walking the talk and being the visionary. And I'm in the weeds on a few things, but I've done both. I love both, and I'm not going anywhere. So I am, though, going to really in earnest begin this transition to getting people outdoors and being there with them. And, the retreat that we were at was sort of part of the process. Finian invited me to lead a nature immersion. And then I've got a few opportunities over the summer with some great groups. I had a wonderful one back in May in Vail with an amazing group out of Miami, and I led them on this Misogi up a mountain in Vail.
Just for folks who aren't familiar, and I'm familiar with Misogi from Michael Easter and the Comfort Crisis, but can you just give like a 2-second or 30-second, whatever, however long feels right, explanation of what Misogi is?
Yeah, well, a Misogi is originally, it's a Japanese purification ritual, typically done in really cold water. There's another component to it. There's a whole story of a god who goes into the underworld and tries to bring his wife back to reclaim his happiness after she passes. And he has this epic journey through hell and makes it out to plunge in cold water. And so in the West, in the East, they focus on the purification element, the ritual, the ceremonial element. We said, oh, wow, that's like a really badass adventure. We want to focus on that here in the West. So a Misogi in the West is different. And it has come to mean a challenge, typically a physical challenge outdoors, that you have only a 50-50 shot at achieving. It should be so hard that it really does scare you. It should push your limits, and that is the point. Because we no longer push our limits, a lot of us. We could just skate by living, pretty comfortably with in the fridge.
Fully fed and climate controlled and TV remote in one hand and iPhone in the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And the comfort knowing that we really don't have to do all that much. Whereas our ancestors, again, for the vast majority of our evolution, they faced challenges all the time. They had to move to the hunting ground in the summer and move, carry their entire existence and family with them, and maybe fight an animal on the way or another tribe the next day, and we just don't have those challenges anymore. And so our perception of our limits is getting smaller and smaller, and we live in these boxes that are becoming much smaller. Whereas if we just expanded beyond, we would see that our limits are infinite. And so a Misogi is designed to show you that the parameters that you're living in are self-imposed and way too small. And I'm not talking they ought to double or triple. I'm saying, 10,000 times more. And I love this concept of getting out and challenging yourself, doing it in nature. As I mentioned, I was a competitive ultra marathon and marathon runner, and I'm obviously a big nature nerd. And when I heard about this concept probably 6 or 7 years ago in Outside Magazine, I just really embraced it and have been doing Misogis as often as possible. I've got one this weekend that I'll be walking for as long as possible on Saturday and into Sunday. I'm going to start at 6 a.m. and see how far I can walk without any headphones.
So simple and so hard.
Yeah, so simple. The simpler, the better. The more personal, the better. And it should be kooky. It should be you. It shouldn't be, I want to run a marathon in 3 hours and 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. It should be, I'm going to go walk for as long as I can, and I'm going to carry this stone with me, and I'm going to throw it out in front of me, and I'm going to pick it up and throw it again and again and again. And that's a Misogi to me. So, yeah.
I love it. Can you have a time limit on a Misogi, or can you have a Misogi that lasts for a whole year?
Sure. Although, one of the beautiful things about a Misogi is how fast it gets to expanding your limiting beliefs, right? So a morning, we did this Misogi in Vail with this group, and we climbed this mountain through the snow. These are, CEOs in their 50s and very serious guys. And I asked them to imagine that they were part of a tribe, and we had just vanquished our generational enemy and stolen or reclaimed the icon that they've used to suppress us for generations. And we now have the power, but we have to get that icon to the top of the mountain. And that icon was just a big old river rock. And but these guys, these 50-year-old CEOs, they ate it up, and they gave their tribe a name, and they carried the icon, and they shared the weight, and we had just an absolutely beautiful time. And we talked about expanding our limiting beliefs, and we talked about the things that we're not doing because we're afraid to go out and do them, the things that we're not doing, that we're procrastinating on because our limiting beliefs won't get us there. And so we talked about that. And it was one of the beginnings of my realization that although I love Ned and it fills out most of the Ikigai Venn diagram of what I should be doing, it doesn't fill it all out. And having that experience with those guys was great. For so many entrepreneurs, we're told it's so hard, it's such a mountain to climb, you're crazy for doing it. There's a screw loose in every entrepreneur. It's just hard. And I agree, but it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be, and we shouldn't fetishize stoicism and challenge and struggle. We should be looking for the easiest path. We should be looking for the thing that rolls off your tongue. There are so many times when I've stayed up all night preparing for a meeting, preparing for a speech, preparing because I'm forcing it. I'm trying in areas that are not my zone of genius. If you're in your zone of genius, it should just be in you, and it should just roll off the tongue. And I'm sick of fetishizing struggle. I'm all about it in a lot of ways, but I'm not seeking it out. I do a Misogi. My Misogi this weekend is to walk for as long as possible. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to push my boundaries, but I'm not going to, do it on a bed of nails. I'm not adding challenges to it. I'm not going to use a 60-pound backpack. I'm just going to go out and walk for as long as possible. And that's going to roll off the tongue. It's going to feel good, as opposed to, seeking out and saying, this is just the entrepreneurial journey.
I'm so glad that you came on and talked with me today. I mean, honestly, it is, if we could all just do more things that roll off the tongue, I think the world would be such a better place. And it's infectious. I mean, it really does. It influences all the people around you. I'm sure the transformation that you felt building after recent experiences, after this Misogi in Vail, I'm sure all the guys or girls, I don't know if it was just a men's trip, who came on that trip had the same things trickle into their own lives and then their own communities and their own families. And I think it's just, living authentically and really listening to that inner voice, and, even being able to hear it in the first place, and then to really listen to it. What more purpose do you need? We know what we need, and we just kind of have to get out of our own way most of the time. So it's really beautiful to see you doing that.
Thanks, Mike. And yeah, getting out of my own way is what I'm focusing on right now. That and surrendering. But we all have these preconceived notions, and a lot of them don't serve us, and they're given to us by society or our parents or our heritage. From a hardworking Irish family. My grandfather did this, that, and that. It was a struggle, and that gets written into your own story, and I don't want that. I want it to roll off the tongue. I want it to be easy. I want to be in flow as much as possible. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's what I think I should have been seeking all along.
Well, welcome back home, I guess, then. And thanks for coming on. Thanks for inspiring me, and I'm sure anybody listening to this with your story and your ongoing story. And can't wait to get to hear how it's going for you, and whether that means I know I'm going to hear either way, but whether we get you back on to give us an update, that could be really cool too. But I'm just excited to hear about it from a personal standpoint. So thanks again, Rhett. If people want to find out more about Ned or about other things that you start throwing out into the world as you're tapping into this new chapter, ways people can get in touch with you or hear more about what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So Ned is helloned.com. On Instagram, we're just @Ned, @NED. Me personally on Instagram is Mr. Misogi, MISTER_Misogi, MISOGI. And I'm working on a website to help other people get outside and to do Misogis together and to coach people in that. And that website will be the misogisystem.com.
Love it. Wow. I know where I'm going to visit, and thanks again for spending time with me and with our listeners, Rhett. It was amazing, and I got at least 10 other things I'm going to talk to you about as soon as I pause recording on this thing. So sorry everybody else, but sometimes I got to get some me time with Rhett. But thanks again, and we'll see you on the podcast again, I'm sure, at some point.
Thanks, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Bye, buddy.
That's all for this episode. Thanks everyone for listening, and if you're looking for more, be sure to follow us on social at WildHealthMD and head over to wildhealth.com or wildhealth.com/premium to become a patient and experience precision medicine for yourself.